Nusantara modernity. How do we think in a more radical way, and not just trying to maybe put everything together? Okay, so we include everything. We include Islamic tradition, Hindu, or maybe other black magic or others. So we have everything, but that doesn't help with the fact or reality that most of the time violence are done through human institution, right? So unless, of course, we didn't really, we haven't seen the film, so we don't know, okay, what you analyze or you discuss. Of course, you are pointing to something that goes beyond very local or very national mode of modernity or mode of film. You wanted to say that the filmmaker actually incorporate all possible creative sources for him to recreate, right? And also different modes of beliefs. So, but we don't. To me, I didn't really see through this. If it is not just colliding or collaging different tradition that we think there's another word, superstitious word that really exists. But I do not see the real confrontational critique against the existing human world or the institution that has made, maybe, for example, also you mentioned there's a liminality or a liminal threshold. The impossibility of people to pass through the liminal threshold is actually obstructed or hindered by human institution or human ideology. So I was just trying to say that this Nusantara concept, if this is a inclusive concept, then that wouldn't help us to see the gap or the obstacles or barriers in between the islands, right? In between different terrain. That is just my thought. Yeah.
I thank you for that. Yeah, I understand. I understand what you. So of course, the Nusantara concept can be like Islam or whatever, state Islam can be used by governments to do that, nationalist governments, or when we saw with Ganyang Malaysia, Ganyang Indonesia, the konfrontasi in the 60s between Indonesia and Malaysia over Sabah and Sarawak wanting to agree to join Malaysia in 1963. But I don't think Dain is looking at it from that political leadership state discourse. He's trying to understand. A lot of it is really about undermining Western modernity, because the assumption is that we are modern subjects, and it's that layer of modern subject beliefs that get slowly worn away in the film. So you see that things that are happening in the court. So there's a scene where the defending lawyer for the shaman starts saying that she had to show, he tried to show that she had no motive to kill the politician, even though she got him to pay up front and got the money and went on a shopping spree after that. But he's trying to show that she did it was kind of an accident because he didn't follow the logic and therefore he died. And that he knew what he was he knew what he was doing. But at some point he asked, who believes in black magic? And he turns around and asks the public, how many of you believe in black magic? And half of them put their hands up. And the judge found this to be an insult to the court and then fined him. But he made his point. The point being that it's not important what we believe in, but it's important to establish her motive. And her motive was that there were these set of rules I gave him, and he knew, and I told him, and then he broke them, and therefore he died. So the film really starts from the position of modernity, of scientific, Western, logical thing, and it's trying to get us to think about the alternatives. But it's not saying, throw everything out. It's not. It's much more specific. It's about a kind of thinking. Yeah.
I was just trying to say this term,
Nusantara could be very radical if we don't think it as encompassing space of all togetherness, to think that it is islands that drifts with the wave, and it's islands that has gaps in between. And that is just a thought that it's not nothing really against you, but the thought, the concept, Nusantara as a mode of disciplinary space is not to just for us to include everything and acknowledging everything, but to think the possibility of the gaps and how to relocate those gaps. That's.
No, thank you for that. Because I think it's very important, because when I first watched Interchange, I was just like, I didn't like it, because again, my problem was I wasn't thinking like a Nusantara. I was thinking like a Malaysian. And I'm like, I'm like, there's no way a cop, a forensic photographer can afford to live in a really nice glass apartment, that's down in because of course I know where the apartment is, right? It's down in KL in the city center. There's no way that anybody, and then the way the headquarters of the police station usually is blue and white, right? Blue and white, and it's completely recognizable. But he chose not to do all that, because he wanted that city to be anywhere in the Nusantara. So it could be Jakarta, it could be supposedly, it was this sort of made up space. So it's, so again, see, I'm already having to deconstruct myself as a national subject, to think in a more regional way. But I like your idea about thinking about different kinds of, maybe if we get a Filipino film or an Indonesian film that also poses this kind of possibilities. I think Satan might be one by Joko.
Cosmopolitan and Chinese language cosmopolitanism. I was thinking of Jiang's Lee's 2006 film, Before We Fall in Love Again. Shot in black and white, but the very first scene is two friends standing in a blank room. One guy has a GPS monitor, and they're new. This is a new invention. He said, "Look, this can show us where we are." He said, and the other guy says, "But don't we know where we are?" He says, "No, we're in Malaysia. No one knows where we are." And it really sets the whole scene of that film. But on the other hand, you get something like Amir Muhammad's Susuk, which is this horror story about this taboo black magic. But I asked him about it. He said he completely made it up. There is no such thing. So in some ways, they both seem to be contradictory technologies.
But Susuk does exist.
But he told me, he promised me that it doesn't exist. He made it up for the film, he said.
No, I mean he might have made up the whole story,
oh.
but Susuk does exist. The practice actually does exist. Yeah.
But in some ways, they always seem to go to magic with melee, and then there's other kind of technologies for the Chinese
actually that's not true, because horror is big now. They know that horror possibly can sell. So in Malaysia there's also Chinese horror now. Not quite. So like James Lee just made a film called Two Sisters. It's not horror. I mean, of course it tricks you into thinking maybe this is like a continuation of the Korean film about the two sisters, but it's not. It's more of a psychological horror than pure horror. But there have been other Chinese language Malaysian horror before. There were these sort of trilogies made Corridor of Horror, Doors of Horror, right? So yeah, I think it's just horror, but what Dain is doing in his films is more than horror. It's more psychological, and the genres are kind of different. It's thriller and courtroom and noir. So yeah, you might want to think about whether what I've said can be applied to other Malay horror films. I'm not sure, because I know that he's a very intellectual filmmaker, so he's put a lot of thought into it. I'm not sure how intellectualized the other Malay horror films are. Answer your question.
Yeah, I was talking about cosmopolitanism, that horror.
Hello. Any other questions from the floor? So, if there's no questions, maybe we can end the session. Thank you so much to Prof. Khoo Gaik Cheng and everyone